Move out of my way, the cab driver screamed, slamming his fist against the horn. Daisy Johnson did not move. She stood in the middle of the road, eyes empty, chest heaving, like someone who had already decided the world owed her nothing more. Cars swerved. Horns blared from every single direction. A motorcycle nearly clipped her shoulder. She did not flinch. Not once. Then the black car came. It was moving fast, too fast for a Tuesday afternoon in Seoul. The tires bit into the asphalt with a sharp, violent screech that ripped through the noise of traffic like a blade. The car stopped just a few inches from her knees. The door swung open. Kerry Parks stepped out. He was tall and composed, with eyes sharp enough to cut a glass. He looked at her the way a man looks at something that does not make sense to him. There was no anger in his eyes, but he had this kind of controlled urgency that comes from someone who has seen too much to panic. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly, his voice calm and direct. Daisy looked at him. Her lips parted to say something but nothing came out. Her handbag was still hanging off one shoulder. Her blazer was perfectly pressed. From the outside, she looked like a woman on her way to a meeting. But her eyes told a different story entirely. "I said, what are you doing standing in the middle of the road?" Kerry asked, his voice more calm. That was when it happened. Her knees gave out first. Then her shoulders caved forward. And then Daisy Johnson, top diamond sales representative, the woman who had closed $3 million deals in a single quarter, the woman who smiled through every hard morning and never let a single coworker see her crack, broke open right there on the asphalt. She did not cry quietly. She sobbed so hard and uncontrollable, the kind of cry that does not ask for permission and does not care who is watching. Her whole body shook with tears that streamed down her face. Kerry did not step back. He did not pull out his phone. He moved toward her, trying to console her like he understood her pain, and the moment he reached for her, her eyes rolled and her body went limp. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Welcome to Miss Afro-Korean Stories. Let me ask you a question. Where are you watching this story from? Drop your city, your country, your time zone right now in the comments. And if you are new here, you are warmly welcome. You just stumbled onto a channel where the stories hit differently. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay locked in because what is coming next in this story will shake you and leave you wanting for me. Drop a like if you are already feeling it. Now let's get back Daisy. 6 months earlier, Daisy's life looked like something worth envying. She worked for Brilliant Cut Diamonds, one of the most prestigious diamond distribution companies in Seoul. She was not just an employee. She was their best. 3 years running top sales representative. Her clients trusted her, not because she was trained to smile, but because she genuinely cared about what she was selling them. A diamond, she always said, should mean something. It should carry weight. And she believed that about love too. Fernae Jin walked into her life the way trouble always does, looking like exactly what you needed. He was charming in the specific way that bypasses logic and goes straight for the chest. Tall, well-dressed, gorgeously handsome, spoke about the future with Daisy like he had already seen it. He told her he was a corporate manager at a major logistics firm. He told her he had investments running across 3 cities. He told her he had been waiting for someone like her all through his life, and glad that he finally meant her. Daisy believed him. His pure well-planned lies. Why would she not? He showed up on time. He remembered small things about her event. He called when he said he would call. In a world full of men who disappeared mid-conversation, Fernae Jin felt like proof that good things were still possible. Within 8 months they had opened a joint bank account. It would make sense, he told her one evening at an afternoon juice date, sliding the bank documents across the restaurant table like it was the most natural thing in the world. We are building something. Why keep everything we make separate? Daisy didn't haste to sign the document, not knowing she was signing away her hard-earned sweat and labor. 3 weeks later, he came to her with an investment opportunity. A business expansion, he said. A guaranteed 50% return. He needed her to back him just partially, just enough to show the partner she was committed to. She moved 400,000 won into the joint account with the second thoughts, all for love. Then came the wedding talk. Not a vague future talk but real detailed specific wedding talk. With venue options, guest lists, the exact style of ring she preferred. Fernae was deliberate about it, making her feel chosen, making her feel like every sacrifice was building towards something solid. And then, almost as an afterthought, almost like it was the most boring administrative thing in the world, he slid a joint life insurance policy across the table. Standard stuff, he said, not even looking up from his phone. My financial advisor said it is smart planning for couples. Daisy signed that too. No hesitation. She did not know she had just handed him the final piece of a plan. He had been running long before he ever learned her name. The withdrawal started small. 100 here. 200 there. She noticed but said nothing, told herself it was the investment moving, told herself she trusted him. Then a vendor called her directly, demanding payment on a wedding deposit that Fernae had confirmed was already settled. She called him. He picked up on the third ring and explained it away smoothly. Too smoothly. That should have been the moment she knew. But love has a way of making intelligent people argue against their own instincts, and Daisy Johnson was no exception. The text came on a Wednesday morning. Not a call. Not a conversation. Not even the decency of looking her in the face. Just a message. 11 words sitting on her screen like a verdict from a courtroom she never knew she was standing in. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. Take care of yourself. Daisy read it 3 times. Then she laughed. Actually laughed because her brain refused to accept it as real. She typed back immediately. Call twice. The first call rang out. The second call went straight to a number that no longer existed. Fernay Jin was gone. She checked the joint account 40, the balance read 0. Not even low balance but a blatant 0. Everyone she had deposited, every transfer she had made, every investment she had believed in, was wiped clean without a single trace. This was planned. Her legs carried her to the bathroom. She gripped the edge of the sink and looked at herself in the mirror. And for the first time in years, she did not recognize the woman staring back. Not because she looked different, but because everything she had built her confidence on, the relationship, the future, the trust, had just been confirmed as fiction, shattered to the last tiny pieces of a broken glass. She called his office number. A receptionist answered and told her no one by the name Fernay Jin worked at that company. She tried the address he had given her once when she asked to visit. The building existed. The company on the 3rd floor existed. But the name Fernay Jin meant nothing to a single person inside it. She sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes. Then she stood up, washed her face, fixed her makeup, walked back to her desk and sold 2 diamond sets before noon. Because that was who Daisy Johnson was. She did not fall apart where people could see. But the world did not care how well she held herself together in public. The loan reminders started the following week. High-interest online loans she had taken out to cover the investment gap when Fernay told her the partners needed more liquidity. She had taken 3 separate loans across 2 different platforms, each one with interest terms that compounded weekly. At the time it felt temporary. It felt like a bridge between now and the future he had painted for her. Now it felt like a rope around her throat. The messages were not polite. They came at 6 in the morning and 11 at night. Automated at first, then personal. One creditor sent a message that read, "We know where you work. Settlement is expected by Friday or legal proceedings begin." Daisy muted her phone during work hours. She smiled at clients. She remembered their names, their anniversaries, the exact cut of diamond their partner had pointed. She was brilliant at her job and she poured everything she had left into it, because if she stopped performing the silence would be too loud. But at night, alone in her apartment, the numbers stacked up like walls closing in from every side. Rent was due. A wedding vendor she had personally guaranteed was threatening to report her to a credit agency. The joint account was empty. Her personal savings had been drained into the investment. And Fernay Jin had vanished so completely it was as if she had invented him. 3 weeks of this. Then 4. Then 6. She stopped eating full meals. Not intentionally. She just kept forgetting. Kept replacing hunger with spreadsheets and repayment calculations, and the same unanswerable question running on a loop in the back of her mind. How did I not see it? The morning she stepped into traffic was the morning a creditor called her at work. She had stepped out to take what she told her colleague was a client call. The voice on the other end was sharp and cold and completely unbothered by the fact that a human being was on the receiving end of what it was saying. "Miss Johnson, this is your final courtesy notice. Failure to remit full payment by end of business today will result in employer notification and civil action. We have your registered business address." The call ended. Daisy stood on the pavement outside her office building, phone still pressed against her ear, and something inside her went very quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before a person makes a decision they cannot take back. She started walking. She was not walking anywhere specific. She was just moving because standing still felt impossible and going back upstairs felt unbearable. The street noise was loud and thick around her. Delivery bikes. The particular chaos of a city that keeps moving no matter what any single person inside it is going through. She reached the main road. And she stepped off the curb without looking. She simply walked forward like the traffic was not there, like she had already checked out of the part of her brain that calculates consequences. A cab swerved hard to the left. A bus horn blasted from 30 meters back. And then the black car, moving faster than everything else on that road, locked its brakes and screamed to a stop. Inches from her knees, Carrie Park stepped out and found her standing there, blazer pressed, handbag on her shoulder, completely falling apart behind eyes that were still trying to look fine. He asked her what she was doing. She could not answer. And when her body finally gave up the performance her mind had been forcing it through for weeks, she collapsed forward and he caught her before the ground did. He did not know her name yet. He did not know she worked for his company. And she did not know that the man holding her up was the one person in the world with both the power and the quiet intention to burn down everything Fernay Jin had built against her. The hospital was quiet in the way hospitals always are at night. That particular stillness that feels less like peace and more like the world holding its breath. Daisy woke up to a ceiling she did not recognize, a drip in her left arm, and a man sitting in the chair beside her bed reading through something on his phone like he had nowhere else to be. She stared at him for a moment. "You stayed," she said. Her voice came out rough, stripped of everything she normally used to sound composed. Carrie looked up. "You fainted in the middle of a road," he said. "I was not going to leave you on the pavement." She looked away from him. The embarrassment hit first, then the memory of why she had been standing there, and the embarrassment became something heavier and harder to name. "You don't have to stay," she said. "I know," he replied, and he went back to his phone. He did not ask her why she had stepped into traffic. He did not push for an explanation or fill the room with a kind of nervous concern that would have made her feel like a problem to be solved. He simply sat there, steady and unbothered, and somehow that was worse than if he had asked, because it made her feel safe enough to feel everything she had been running from. She turned her face toward the window and let the tears come silently this time. Carrie pretended not to notice, but he noticed everything. He left before the doctor came in the morning, but he had already spoken to the attending physician. Her immediate bills were handled. He left a number with a nurse and said to call if she needed anything, and gave no explanation for why he was doing it. That was how Carrie Park operated. Quietly. What Daisy did not know, what almost no one outside a locked boardroom knew, was that the man who had caught her on that road was the sole owner and founding director of Brilliant Cut Diamonds, the very company whose badge she wore to work every morning. He had built it from a single retail outlet into an empire of 11 distribution branches across South Korea. And he had done it entirely from behind a wall of executive proxies and private operations. His name did not appear on the company website. His face was not in any promotional material. The staff knew a CEO existed. They had heard the title. But in 4 years, not one floor-level employee had ever seen his face. Daisy had sold his diamonds every single day for 3 years without ever knowing he existed. And now he sat in his car outside the hospital, staring at the entrance, with a feeling he could not immediately categorize pressing against the inside of his chest. Something about her eyes when she woke up. The way she had apologized for inconveniencing him before she even knew where she was. The pride in it. The exhaustion underneath the pride. He opened his laptop and made one call. "I need a background investigation," he said. "Personal matter and very discreet. I will send you a name right now," he said, hanging up. He typed, "Daisy Johnson. Brilliant Cut Diamonds. Soul Branch." Then he added, "And whoever she has been involved with in the last 12 months. Everything you can lay your hands on about her." He closed the laptop and drove. The report came back in 4 days. Carrie read it twice. Once quickly to get the facts. Once slowly to make sure his reaction to the facts was controlled before he acted on them. Fernae Jin, 34 years old. No corporate employment history of any kind in Seoul. His only documented connection to the logistics firm he had claimed to manage was a 6-month contract as a third-party catering delivery coordinator for a small subsidiary. A subsidiary that happened to be co-owned by Carrie's own cousin Xavier Park, who had no idea his peripheral business had been used as a backdrop for someone else's con. Fernae had never held a title, never managed anything, never had an office. He had walked through the lobby of that building twice a week with a food delivery cart, and had apparently decided that was enough of a foundation to build a fictional career on. And he had done it before. The investigator flagged 3 other women across 2 cities. Same pattern every time. Charm offensive. Relationship escalation. Joint finances. Manufactured investment opportunity. Disappearance. One woman had lost her apartment. Another had taken out loans that took her 2 years to recover from. The third had filed a police report that went nowhere because by the time the investigation opened, Fernae had already relocated and changed his registered phone number. He was not a man who made mistakes. He was a man who ran a system, and Daisy had been his most recent target. Carrie set the report down on his desk. He sat with it for a long moment, fingers pressed together, eyes focused on nothing in particular. The insurance document was the detail that locked something cold into place behind his expression. Joint life insurance policy. Fernae listed as sole beneficiary. Taken out 4 months before the disappearance. That was not just theft. That was a man who had not yet finished what he started. If there is anything Carrie hates, it was using women just because you think they are weak and have no one to stand up for them. He hates men who saw women as nothing, but a pawn to walk on. Carrie picked up his phone and made 3 calls to his legal team, his head of private security, and a debt resolution firm that operated with full discretion. By the following morning, every loan on Daisy's name had been contacted, documented, and settled. Every vendor she had personally guaranteed had been paid in full with signed legal receipts. The threatening messages stopped arriving before she even woke up that day. She would not know who did it. But Carrie was not finished. He arranged a secure apartment on the private residential side of his estate. He had a panic device prepared, small enough to fit on a keychain, connected directly to his security team's emergency line. Because the investigation had confirmed one more thing. Fernay Jin had just discovered the debts were gone, and men like Fernay did not walk away from loose ends. Daisy noticed the silence, no messages, no automated reminders, no unknown numbers calling at 6 in the morning. She checked her loan accounts from the edge of her bed, still in yesterday's clothes, expecting the usual wall of red figures and settlement demands. Every balance read 0. She refreshed the screen. It was still 0. She opened the second platform. 0. She pulled up the vendor contact she had been dreading for 3 weeks, the one who had threatened to take her to a credit agency. His last message simply read, Asterisk. Matter resolved. No further action required. Daisy sat on her bed for a long time, her hands placed on her chin, lost in thought for adrift. She was not relieved. She was frightened, scared. Because debts do not dissolve on their own, and kindness from an unknown direction, in her current experience, always come with an attachment to something impossible. She called her bank. The customer service representative confirmed that all outstanding linked liabilities had been cleared by a third-party legal settlement firm 2 days prior. No further details were available at branch level. Daisy hung up and stared at the wall. Who does something like this? She thought about the man from the road. The one who had stayed until morning. The one who left before she could thank him properly and left no name. Just a hospital bill marked paid and a nurse who shrugged to say to her that the gentleman had taken care of everything. She did not have his number. She did not know his name. She had nothing except the memory of steady eyes and a voice that was drenched with concern, and the feeling of being caught by someone who did not hesitate to catch her. 3 days later, a representative from a private residential management company contacted her. It was professional, polite, completely vague about who had arranged it. They offered her a furnished apartment in a secure gated estate on the eastern side of the city. Rent covered for a year. No conditions. No contracts requiring signature beyond standard occupancy terms. Daisy almost said no. Every instinct built from the last 8 months told her that things offered freely came with a cost she would discover too late. But her current apartment had a door lock that stuck in walls thin enough to hear her neighbors' conversations, and somewhere in the back of her mind a voice that sounded like survival told her that refusing safety out of pride was a luxury she could not afford right now. She moved in on a Friday evening. The apartment was clean and quiet and looked out over a courtyard with actual trees in it. On the kitchen counter she found a small envelope. Inside was a keychain with a single black button on it and a card that read, Press once in an emergency. Someone will respond. No signature on the card. Daisy turned the device over in her hand for a long moment. Then she attached it to her keys. Fernay Jin found out about the debts on a Tuesday the next week. He had a system for monitoring the women he had moved through. Not out of guilt. Out of logistics. Loose financial threads needed watching because a woman drowning in debt was predictable. A woman whose debt had suddenly vanished was a variable he had not planned for. He drove past her old apartment building first. The landlord confirmed she had vacated. No forwarding address. He tried her phone from a new number. She did not pick up. He waited outside her office building for 2 evenings in a row, watching the entrance from a car parked 40 meters back. And on the second evening he saw her walk out looking so gorgeously beautiful and happy, not like someone who had recently been financially destroyed. That steadiness made rage and bitterness move through him. He had chosen Daisy specifically because she was self-sufficient. Women who managed their own finances, who had good credit and real income, were the ones worth targeting. But self-sufficient women who had just lost everything were also supposed to be too consumed by survival to look up. The fact that she was walking out of that building with her shoulders back and her head level means she had survived the storm he threw her into. It was a Thursday night. Very late. She had been reviewing sales projections on her laptop when the sound on the door reached her. Not the normal click of a building settling, but the specific sound of a lock being worked from outside by someone who knew what they were doing. Daisy closed her laptop slowly and stood up gently, her heart hammering against her chest in fear. The door opened slowly. Fernay stepped inside like he owned the space, which was exactly how he always moved through rooms he had no right to be in. He looked around the apartment with something between curiosity and contempt, taking in the clean lines and the quality of the furnishings in the house. Nice upgrade, he said. Somebody's been helping you? Or you had some spare funds I didn't know about? He asked. Daisy stood up from the couch. Get out. I just want to talk. He moved further into the room. You've been making things complicated, Daisy. The loan's disappearing, you moving. It looks like someone is very interested in your situation. He tilted his head. Who is it? You had another boyfriend? I said get out of my apartment. See, that's the problem. He was close now. His voice had dropped to something that was not quite a whisper, but was designed to feel like a threat landing directly against the ear. This isn't really your apartment, is it? Somebody set this up for you. And whatever they think they're doing, it's not going to change anything. His hand moved toward her arm. Daisy's fingers found the keychain. She pressed the button once. The room was silent for exactly 4 seconds. Then every light in the courtyard outside came on simultaneously. The front door came open hard. Not a knock. It came open the way doors open when the people on the other side of them are not asking for permission. 2 members of a private security team moved through the entrance with the kind of controlled speed that made the room feel suddenly very small. Fernade spun around. For the first time since Daisy had known him, he looked genuinely caught. The composure that had made him so convincing, the ease, the casual confidence he wore like a second skin, cracked open at that moment, and what was underneath it was not pretty. His eyes moved fast, calculating the exit, calculating the odds, calculating whether charm could still work in a room that had just filled with people who were not interested in his explanations. Don't move. The instruction came from the lead security officer. His voice hoarse and intimidating. Fernade moved anyway. He lunged left, trying to reach the kitchen entrance. The second officer cut him off in 2 steps, and the physical confrontation was brief and one-sided, and ended with Fernade against the wall, breathing hard, the performance completely gone from his face. Daisy stood in the center of the room and did not look away. Then Carrie walked in. He was not in a suit. He was in dark clothing, clearly pulled from wherever he had been when the alert reached him, and he moved through the apartment door and took in the scene with the same unhurried assessment he seemed to apply to everything. His eyes went to Daisy first. A single look, checking if she was all right. She gave him the smallest nod. She was standing. She was fine. He accepted that and moved forward. He looked at Fernade. Fernade looked back at him, and terrific look shifted in his expression. "Call the police," Carrie said quietly, commanding in a coarse final tone. The arrest was clean and documented. The officers who arrived had already been briefed by Carrie's legal team, who had spent the previous 2 weeks building a file so thorough that the case barely required a hearing to establish probable cause. Financial fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to defraud across multiple victims in 2 cities, and the insurance policy, submitted as evidence of premeditated intent, which elevated the charges into territory that made Fernade's attorney go very quiet during the first consultation. 3 other women testified. Each one sat in that courtroom and described the same man in different cities wearing different professional titles, and the consistency of their accounts removed every reasonable doubt from the room before the defense had finished its opening statement. 18 to 22 years in jail. The judge delivered the sentence on a gray morning in October, and Daisy sat in the 3rd row, and felt this hot mixed with satisfaction she had not expected to feel. The particular exhale of a person who has been holding their breath for so long they had forgotten what it felt like to breathe normally. The stolen assets were recovered and redistributed to every confirmed victim. Every single one he had stolen. 6 months passed the way recovery passes. A morning when she woke up and the first thought in her head was not about debt. A workday when she laughed at something a colleague said and the laugh was real. A moment in front of the mirror when the woman looking back felt familiar again. Carrie checked in on her regularly, but never intrusively. He will regularly sent a message, asking a question about how she was settling into the new apartment. An invitation to walk along the waterfront on a Saturday that he framed so casually she almost missed that he was asking. She did not miss it. She went. They walked along the sea and talked about things that had nothing to do with Fernade or insurance policies or courtrooms. It was all a forgotten past. And in the fading afternoon light, Daisy told him about the morning she had stepped into the road. The one where she described what it felt like to decide that the ground ahead of her mattered less than the weight behind her. Carrie listened without interrupting her. When she finished, he said, "I'm glad my car was fast enough to stop." She laughed softly, and the warmth, genuine laugh surprised her so completely that she laughed again. That was the beginning of something neither of them know, because some things are too important to rush into. There was a dinner where she ordered the wrong thing and he traded plates with her without being asked. There was an evening with ice cream where he said something unexpectedly ridiculous about the flavor she chose, and she argued back with a passion completely disproportionate to the stakes, and he watched her with an expression she would think about later when she was alone. There were conversations on phone calls that would start at 8 and end at midnight without either of them noticing the hours scrolling by. And then one evening, standing in the courtyard of the estate with the trees she had grown to love framing everything around them, Carrie reached into his jacket pocket and held out a ring. Not a grand gesture. Just a man standing in available light, holding something small and significant, looking at her the way people look at things they are certain about. "You already know how I feel," he said. "I just wanted to make it official." Daisy looked at the ring for a long moment. It was a shiny diamond. She said yes. They married quietly. A peaceful ceremony built around 2 people who had both learned in different ways that the loudest declarations mean nothing without the daily, unglamorous work of choosing someone with consistency and care. Daisy kept her career. Not because she needed to financially, but because she had built something real there, something Fernade had not been able to touch, and she was not willing to walk away from it. Carrie never asked her to. On a warm Thursday morning 3 months after the wedding, They sat on a beach in Los Angeles, the Pacific doing what oceans do regardless of human drama, moving forward without apology, and Daisy rested one hand on her stomach and looked out at the water. I used to think surviving something meant you came out the other side the same, she said. Carrie looked at her. But you don't, she continued. You come out different. And if you're lucky, the different is better. He reached over and took her hand. The water kept moving. Not because you met someone bad means good people don't exist. And not because someone hurt you means you should carry that hurt into every room you walk into for the rest of your life. Love wisely. Guard your heart intelligently. But never let one person's cruelty convince you that kindness is a weakness, or that trust is something only fools practice. Daisy Johnson lost everything and found something better. Not because the world rewarded her suffering, but she kept showing up to her own life even when it was unbearable. And that stubbornness, that refusal to disappear quietly, was what made it possible for anything good to find her. That is the story. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever trusted someone completely and been proven wrong? Have you ever stood at a point in your life where the weight of it all felt like too much? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Be honest. This is a safe space and your story matters here. Also, what kind of stories do you want to see next on this channel? What has been sitting in the back of your mind that you have been waiting for us to cover? Tell me in the comments. I read them. Every single one. If this story moved you, if it held you to this very point, if it made you feel something real, share it. Someone in your circle needs to hear it today. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button. Stay with us. Because the next story is already coming, and trust me when I tell you, you do not want to miss it. Have a lovely day and see you in the next story. Kisses.